Hi, and welcome to Homebuying 101. I am your host, Hope Stafford with the Hope Helps Group. And let's dive right into the market and putting an offer in this market. So let's start with seller or buyer's market. It is very definitely a seller's market. We have much more buyer interest than listings. So what that means is that when you go to put in an offer, you're gonna have to be competitive. So let's start with what is an escalation clause. An escalation clause would mean if a house were selling for $350 and you know that there's a likelihood, because in that price point there really is, a likelihood of multiple offers, you would say, I'm going to put in my offer at $350. However, if the other offers that come in are above $350, I'm willing to go $1,000 above those offers up to, say, $360. That's just an example of what an escalation clause would be. And sometimes sellers don't want to deal with that. Sometimes they just say, give us your best offer, and they'll reject it. But it can't hurt to try. Then the next thing is, what are the risks if I offer above asking? Well, if you're getting a loan, the only time it would matter is if you're paying cash. But if you're getting a loan, you're basically, you need the house to appraise. So if it's $350 and you offer $360 and it only appraises for $350, that extra $10,000, you either have to ask the seller to lower back the price to $350, or you have to pay the difference, that 10 grand. Well, a bank is only going to loan you as much money as the house is worth. So you're only going to get the loan up to $350. So what that means is that you're basically 10 grand underwater to start. Now, in this market, that may not be as much of a concern because houses appreciate pretty quickly. Something to take into consideration, though. And lastly, let's talk about earnest money. What is earnest money? It's basically a deposit. It is saying that I'm putting in an offer for this $350,000 house. I understand that the seller's going to want me to have some skin in the game, right? So it's usually 1 to 2% of the purchase price. So probably somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000. And it is refundable at certain points during the transaction. You always want to go into a transaction, though, with the intent to buy the house, because why would you put an offer in on a house you don't want to buy? So you can get your earnest money back if, for example, you find out in the inspection that there's 50 grand worth of structural damage and the sellers aren't going to do anything about it. At that point, you can say, okay, well, we don't want this house anymore. But you probably won't get your earnest money back if it's a week before closing and you decide, I see another house out there and I want that house. So I'm just going to say bye to this owner and not get this house. You can't do that. So that's sort of small explanation of what is earnest money. So please join us next week for another installment of Home Buying 101.